All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to invite folks at the back. If you want to come and have a seat, please do. My name is Kevin Walker. I'm President and CEO of Duquesne Light, and I wanted to welcome you here today for this really exciting opportunity to talk about what the Allegheny Conference has been doing around energy. I love the fact that we have the whole ecosystem of energy in the room, and soup to nuts, cradle to grave, however you want to term it. And that's that partnership and that diversity in the room has helped us get to a place that I think is really special and that we can advance as we leave this room. I get the opportunity to do some thank yous first, which is always good to do. Let me thank first Electra Janis, who's hosting us here today. I thought I met Electra's, let's give Electra a hand for supporting us here today. We actually be in this lovely space here at CNX Resources, so thanks CNX for hosting us here today. Yes, we can give them a round of applause too. It's okay. Trying to get the energy going. You're going to hear a lot of power puns here. Sorry about that. Obviously, what Allegheny Conference is trying to do is promote the economic development and vibrancy and growth in our region. And the partners that we get from the elected officials that happen to be in the room are invaluable in doing that. So let's give the elected officials who are here a round of applause. Great, thank you. And then lastly, I would like to recognize the team that worked on this policy committee at Allegheny Conference on energy. And it was a team of, again, soup to nuts, the entire ecosystem of energy that brought their perspectives and their sensitivities and their ingenuity to the table to come up with some policy recommendations that I'm going to talk about here that we're going to take and champion in Harrisburg. So for those of you who are here and those who are not here, let's just give them a round of applause as well. I said finally, but I'm going to put back on my Duquesne Light hat and thank our customers and everybody who's been in the ecosystem on our storm that we had the last couple of weeks. I have been around. I'm not a Pittsburgher by native, but I've been around the country at 6 different jurisdictions, maybe 8 if you count them all. And I could say that the neighbor helping neighbor, the commitment, the passion, the patience that came from our community was second to none, and I was really proud to be a part of a community like this. So let's give all of yourselves a round of applause for enduring and working through that so gracefully. So what have we been doing? So I talked about the policy committee on energy. We got together, probably started this journey originally probably a year or so ago as Allegheny Conference put out its strategic priorities, but then really in a synthesized way over the last couple of months. We had 3 sessions where we used human-centered design, where everybody got to vote up and vote down and add and subtract from scenarios and thinking. And the bottom line up front, the problem we're trying to address is that PJM, who's our regional transmission operator, says that we have a 40 gigawatt shortfall in generation capacity that's going to show up by 2030. So think about like all of this generation, and that's a net. So that's with things that are being decommissioned. That's things that are coming online. That's also new load that's coming on. Think about data centers and manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. As you do all the puts and takes, energy efficiency is included in that. Their forecast is 40 gigawatt shortfall. So we felt like, as a region, this is an opportunity as well as a challenge. We are uniquely positioned in our region to help solve this problem for PJM, but also for our region. And in doing so, we help our economy, we help our businesses, we help our vibrancy, we help leverage all the great things that we have. So we really leaned into this to think about what are the policy changes that need to happen in Harrisburg. And obviously, by extension, some of that stuff trickles down to local levels, and then some of that trickles up to federal support for our statewide initiatives. So they fall into 4 categories. The first category was to set up a kind of a rapid response team or SWAT team that's going to be able to handle this dynamic, changing, ever-changing energy landscape. We think just the normal course is too slow and too cumbersome and too bureaucratic. And so this group that is targeted and focused, and a bipartisan group, by the way, we feel like you can't just get it done with one side or the other of the aisle. Everybody has to be working together for the good of the Commonwealth and the good of our region. So that SWAT team needs to be developed and targeted at energy issues. The second element that we're focusing on is siting and permitting. The way we solve this problem is to build. Build, baby, build, right? We need to build as much stuff as we can to plug that 60 or 40 gigawatt shortfall. So siting and permitting can get in the way. And that's where I talked about, this is at a state level, but it also could be at a local level, because siting and permitting is in jurisdictions and both of those areas. So we need to have a very streamlined process for siting and permitting so that we can start getting steel in the ground to solve this problem. The third element was incentives. Clearly, different folks from manufacturing to data centers are looking for different things. Some of them, quite frankly, are not moved by incentives, but others are. And if you think about the competitive landscape of people who we're competing with, states we're competing with, regions we're competing with, we need to really step up our game from an incentive standpoint in a targeted way so that we can attract and really be competitive with those other locations. And then finally, if you think about this, PJM, being the Regional Transmission Authority, their job is reliability and making sure the market is efficient. You could run a scenario, which we did. Will the market really provide by itself? Do we just take a hands-off approach and the market will solve? I think everybody to a person said, no, we don't think that's going to happen, especially since they're forecasting a 40 gigawatt shortfall. So the next step is, with the market with reforms. If there's enough reforms in the market, will that solve the problem? We thought that would help. I know PJM has got some reforms on deck, and we think are really practical and really make a lot of sense. So those things should happen, but there's still going to be a gap. So then you get to the area of so what has to happen beyond the market? And that goes to things like government and quasi-government solutions. So all of those solutions need to be considered, whether it's utilities getting back in the generation business, whether it's the state or a municipality becoming a generation authority, a GenCo. Some of those things that would be creative and innovative and really challenge our ecosystem that we have here in the Commonwealth, we need to consider them honestly, and then eventually, if we don't like them, we can rule them out or modify them. But to reject them out of hand is probably not going to serve us well, and we're still going to be wrestling with that 40 gigawatt shortfall. So that's an overview of what we've done and what we're going to be prepared to talk about today. At the end, we would hope that you would hear something you like and that you want to get involved and help champion this and market it as we go forward into Harrisburg. So at this point, I will invite up the rest of the panelists who will be able to share their thoughts and wisdom on this. So panelists, please come up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Pashman with the Allegheny Conference, and I have the privilege of serving as moderator today. Before we jump in, I just want to say a couple more thank yous, and then we'll bring our panelists into this. I want to just acknowledge the elected officials who are in the room here today. Commissioner Sherman, thank you for having us in your backyard. We appreciate it. Senator Bartolotta, I think, is also with us today. Thank you for having us here. Representative Venkat, I think, had to depart. I know he was here earlier, but thank you to him, and also Representative Kozak. We really appreciate everything you do, and this is obviously a partnership with all of you at the local and state level. Our elected officials are critical to figuring out how we're going to drive forward in our energy strategy. With that, I'd like to jump in. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves. Kevin just did a wonderful job of framing for us a challenge that is coming. And I think added to that challenge is really the fact that this region has an economic development opportunity to turn this challenge into a growth potential, to make it a comparative advantage, to figure out how to sell our assets and energy, our natural resources, so we can drive growth and opportunity here. And as you see, we have a really nice, diverse group of companies who have perspectives on this, some who sat at our table on the policy solutions, and some who are just our partners in this important work. And so I'm going to ask each of you to start off by introducing yourself and your company, and then helping me understand why this matters to you. What is the challenge for your company, and why it's important that we address this issue? So I'm going to start with you, Jacques, and then we'll go to we'll move to the next. So
okay.
We'll start with you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Sorry, you can notice a slight New Jersey accent. I moved here about 30 years ago in New Jersey, so I'm trying to work on it, but I live here. So I represent Westinghouse. you all know Westinghouse. It's a feature of this region. Something you may not know is that everything started here in Shippingport in the 50s, about 80 years ago now. And Westinghouse has been the leader in nuclear services since. Actually, half of the nuclear reactors around the world are from Westinghouse, more or less. And this is where you got to notice my New Jersey accent, because when I was a kid, actually, in the 70s, I noticed a great gift from the Western PA to France. I don't know if you know that, but in the 70s, Westinghouse signed a license to the French utility Électricité de France. And thanks to this license, the 50-plus reactors in France are from Westinghouse. France now has 75% of electricity in France is coming from nuclear, and it was a great gift with a fee, I guess, from Western PA. So, and at that time, to my delight, there was a direct flight from Pittsburgh to Paris. So my goal is to get sure that we have this flight back. I mean, every day. So anyway, to come back to why we're here and why nuclear energy is very important to this region. Nuclear energy is one of maybe the only issue that is bipartisan. I mean, look at everything that's happening in DC, everything around the US. This is one issue where we have very heavy support from both parties. And you could see, I mean, last Friday, actually, there was 3 executive orders that are going to really speed up what I would call the new renaissance of nuclear energy. And also, we enjoy exactly the same support from Harrisburg. So we are very lucky, but this is a unique opportunity that we need to use right now. So the current fleet in the US is about 100 reactors. It's getting old. It's about 60 to 70 years old. So it has to be replaced. It has to be upgraded. You mentioned that. The electricity demand in the US for 20 years was flat. I don't know if you knew that. We are growing, but we're able to have a flat electricity demand. And now it's not the case anymore. The electricity demand is going up very rapidly, thanks or because, I don't know how you feel about that, of artificial intelligence. Data centers are popping up everywhere across the US. At the beginning, they were requiring a kilowatt. After it was a megawatt, and now it's a gigawatt. They are very large data centers. And so we need to be here to answer the call. And we are very lucky because of all the work my predecessor, I always said that I sit on the shoulder of giants. My predecessor, Westinghouse, I mean, they kept, improving the technology, and we are the only one today to have a large modular reactor and a small modular reactor that and for the large one, it's the only commercially available today around the planet. We have 2 in operation in Georgia and 4 in China. We have 38 projects right now across the world. And the good news is that there will be a big impact in Southwest Pennsylvania. And we believe that there will be about 10 reactors. It was written in the executive orders that are going to be ordered for construction in the next 5 years. For each project, they come by pair. So two reactors. We create about 45,000 jobs. Most of the jobs actually are next to the reactors. But because we need support, and we are here locally, about between 5,000 and 10,000 jobs are going to be created for every project here in southwestern Pennsylvania. So it's happening now, and I need your help, and we're looking forward to working with all of you, and thank you for your support to make sure that you can help us grow very fast here in Pennsylvania. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacques. Alan, thank you again for hosting us on behalf of CNX for hosting us. So from your perspective, what's the challenge, and can you tell us a little about yourself and what you do for CNX?
Yeah. So basically, Alan Shepard, CFO, been in energy in both coal and gas for the last 20 years or so. Have seen the development of shale from basically the first well, the concept that came into Western Pennsylvania, and the impact that's had on our region. It's been really incredible. We've displaced, in terms of coal generation, it's been the #1 climate accretive activity that's happened has been the gas displacement of coal. Coal's still a vital part of our region. But ultimately, we've been the driving force behind that and providing that energy resiliency that coal does. So from a big picture perspective, if we're going to have an energy crisis in PJM, it's going to be one of our own making. Appalachia sits above like the top energy resources in the world in terms of shale gas, in terms of other BTUs available. We just need the political willpower and the recognition that ultimately these resources do need developed. Our focus at CNX is expanding inclusion into the industry, expanding awareness of the opportunities to develop the resource from where we're at. I mean, if you think back to the beginning of the shale, a lot of the criticism of our industry has been you bring in out-of-state folks who are kind of temporary in terms of jobs. I think early on that might have been the case when you had folks coming in who didn't operate with the same level of responsibility and ownership that a native company to Western Pennsylvania would operate with. We've seen that diminish to almost non-existent now. The folks that are here are our neighbors. You know, the jobs that we create are permanent within the industry. And really the next step from our perspective is education. A lot of the programs and initiatives we're working on are things like our Radical Transparency, where we're working to, at a ground level, identify BTECs and things like that could potentially negatively impact local health. We don't think we have any negative impacts, but without the data, we can't prove that definitively. But we've been on that journey the last few years to prove to our neighbors that we are not a negative externality in that manner. And then, we do other programs as well, including kind of expand the workforce. So we run a program called the CNX Mentorship Academy that seeks to kind of reach out to communities that don't have really any involvement in oil and gas and bring them into jobs in the sector and things like that. So fundamentally, solving the problem that we're talking about with the PJM starts with education of the populace, education of the politicians, making them aware of the benefits of traditional natural gas and some of the new products that are available that we might come on to talk about a little bit later, such as coal mine methane. We're talking about a waste gas resource that when combined with traditional natural gas can create basically energy, or net zero, call it carbon neutral energy sources that are as reliable as coal and traditional gas fired. So we just have incredible opportunities throughout the region. Appalachia should be the go-to destination for any future manufacturing, any future economic development like data centers. And if we miss the opportunity, it'll only be because we can't get organized and get focused.
Samir, I'm going to move to you. I know Kevin will come back to you at the end for some final comments on this issue since we already heard. But Samir, you're coming from a different perspective from industry. So can you give us a sense of why this is a challenge for you and tell us a little about who you are and what Covestro does?
Sure. So Samir Hifri, president of Covestro. For those of you who don't know Covestro, that's the former Bayer. You see our big sign, colorful sign on the way to the airport on the Parkway West. So even though the name changed, we still, are in the same line of business, making the same products. Our materials are going into hundreds of different applications, from medical devices to smartphones to automotive to electric and electronics. We're a global company, German headquartered, but the U.S. is our largest market. And we've been present here for 65 plus years. Pittsburgh is our North American headquarter, again, the headquarter of our largest market. This topic is incredibly important for us. Why is that? I'm bringing the perspective of a consumer of energy, right? We are in the manufacturing business. We are consuming a lot of energy, and we have always taken it for granted that the availability and the low cost of energy was a given. So when Kevin brought this topic to the table, and I commend him for really leading us through this exercise to say we may have an issue a few years down the road, and we don't have a lot of a runway, that we need to address it as soon as possible. This is very critical for my company and for our industry. And also thanks to Stephanie and the Allegheny Conference for really doing this as an ecosystem. So not only the suppliers of energy trying to solve the issue or the transmitters, but really bringing the whole value chain together to try to solve it. So the availability, reliability, and economics of energy are absolutely fundamental for us. You cannot have a competitive industry in this region without having a reliable infrastructure of energy. That is absolutely foundational. And like I said, in the past, we've taken it for granted. And now this is a topic, this is why it's really important. Mm-hmm. And I think we have a good game plan, a good roadmap. And let's just roll up our sleeves and get to work.
That's great. So Kevin, let's just put final comments on this challenge issue. We've heard about urgency, we've heard about supply demand. Help us and help us understand a little more the challenge we're facing, the risk of doing nothing, and in that, maybe some comments on PJM so folks understand.
Yeah, and let me talk about, what's in it for us kind of thing. Why are we
Exactly.
interested? So Duquesne Light, we only transmit and distribute the power. We don't generate the power. Today, we're not allowed to. No utility in Pennsylvania is allowed to do that. So our angle is really about the region and about our customers. We're the ones who actually provide the bills. We're the ones who help our customers through economic hardship. We connect customers to grants. We're doing it as part of our responsibility to our customers locally. So we saw this train coming down the track. I remember the first time I heard from PJM that they thought this was going to be an issue was probably maybe a year and a half ago. And you can imagine my shock, and as most of the people around the room, when they said, "Oh yeah, kind of casually, sunny outside, and we have a 40 gigawatt shortfall." It's like, wow, okay, and isn't it your job to kind of solve that? And they said, well, we're doing some things, and so I started asking questions about certainty, like, well, how certain are you that you can solve it? Because, and the answer to that was like, well, we're not really certain that we could solve it. And so what should be done about it? Well, you're going to have to engage with your states because PJM is 13 states. 13 states operate together, and policies that happen in one state impact what happens in other states. So Pennsylvania is a net exporter of generation. That means that within our borders, we generate more power than we consume, and we export that power into the PJM grid. Most of the other states, I almost want to say 11 of the other 12 states are net importers. So you can imagine like how much Pennsylvania is holding up the PJM system, and even that is going to be challenged by 2030. It's not going to be enough. So part of that is that because we were uniquely positioned to leverage the talents and the resources and the tools and the know-how, so that didn't happen by accident. And so I think that to continue to leverage that is a great opportunity for us. And we're just thinking about, from a customer's perspective, if the lights are not on a rolling blackout or sustained blackout period of time, economically, you just can't snap your fingers and solve that problem. So we need to get ahead of it, and the urgency is real. It's not. I'm not one to run around with my hair on fire. If I had hair, I'm not one that run around with my hair on fire. But this is one that we really need to take seriously and lean into. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, and you said 2030 we could have rolling blackouts.
2030.
Yeah, so that's really soon. So Alan, coming back to you, tell me a little bit more about CNX's solution to this problem. And you mentioned CMM. Help people understand how that is an available source, how it will help us solve this problem in the near term, and also comment a little bit on this issue of clean and sustainable, because obviously that's another component of this is people want to make sure these solutions are actually, clean.
Yeah, so I mean, if you back up, the pressure you're seeing on the grid is from things like coal retirements and gas retirements that
Yep.
have been labeled dirty, right? So we've elected winners and losers in the space. So when you're talking about replacing things that have been reliable for 100 years, that have been the underpinning of our manufacturing economy in this part of the world, the technological opportunities to replace that are limited, right? So there's wind and solar. I think we've seen after 25 to 30 years of dispatching those technologies that they have value, but in terms of reliability, particularly in this part of the world, we suffer from sunshine challenges, as you can see outside, and the wind is does whatever it wants, right? So, we need if you're going to retire coal plants, if you're going to create a 40 gigawatt capacity issue, what are you going to backfill that with? So one of the options you have is one of the things that we've identified. This region has done coal mining for the last 150 years, and we still have vent shafts and old kind of artifacts from that activity that vent methane unabated into the atmosphere. So we've been advocating for the solution to go gather that and feed it into a power plant. We've worked with folks like Argonne National Labs at the federal level to do science-based analysis on what the impact of that is in terms of the environment. And they've come back with scores that when you were to blend this product with traditional natural gas, you get to a net zero reliable power generation source. And some of the things you've seen us talk about, I think, at the current level of gathering we do, we could decarbonize 2 gigawatts of capacity on the grid. And then from there you build up, right? But that's all going to take economic incentives. It's going to take education. It's going to take folks understanding that this product doesn't incentivize coal mining. It is actually a remediated product that cleans up a problem from coal mining, right? So you got to get out of this kind of negative halo when people start talking about fossil fuels. So CMM is one aspect, but most importantly is the region needs to continue to embrace natural gas. It is going to be the backbone of all economic development and sustainability in this region for decades and decades to come. We are literally atop oceans in the oceans of resources. I know a lot of folks might not know this, but the Marcellus is a literal ocean. It just dried up and left the little sea creatures there, and that's where the gas comes from. They're decomposing bodies. So when we use that phrase, it means something, right? So we just need to not have policies that discourage the development of that, get our neighbors involved in the industry, get our kind of politicians and regulators involved in the industry so they understand the necessity and the value that it creates.
Thank you. Jacques, you mentioned a bit of your solutions in terms of reactors. Can you just break it down for us? We know you have kind of quite a new range of solutions from microreactors to small modular. Help us understand nuclear and the future of nuclear, and then also the timing, right? That's the thing that always comes up with this. When can we get this done, and when can we get nuclear to be a commercial product that's available for production?
Sure, thank you so much. So let me start with what is available today. It's a large modular reactor. It's called an AP1000. It's passive safety. I'm not going to give you too much detail, but basically, if something happens, you can walk away and passively, using gravity, using physics, the reactor will shut down. This is the only one that's been under development here, again, by engineers here in Pennsylvania for the last 20 years, and is now in operation in the US. So this can be restarted tomorrow. And this was the idea of the executive order on Friday. So this we can do. Second thing we can do tomorrow, and we've done it yesterday actually, is to restart some reactors. I don't know if you heard about what's happening in 3 Mile Island. The reactor was shut down. I mean, there was an accident in one. The other one was good, but shut down. And it's going to be restarted by Constellation with money coming from Microsoft, hyperscalers. And this is going to be quite, 1 gig to help you. You have only to find 39 now. 39, 1 gig. So this is yesterday, okay? 39. So now, so to go back from large reactor to small, so a large reactor is 1 gig. A small and modular reactor is about a third of it. And we have, it's called the AP300. It is under development, almost done, and it's going to be available a little bit behind, but in the 30s. And the last one, which is the most interesting here, which is new, it's a micro reactor. Actually, it's a nuclear battery. And here is 5 meg. I mean, you put it on a truck, actually. And this is going to serve actually small data centers, small community, remote. Can be used, for example, in case of emergency, during an outage, for example. So this is a new technology developed here in Pittsburgh,
right?
at Etna in Pittsburgh. So I'm not doing anything, I'm just the commercial guy, so I sell. But everything was done before me. I mean, you need to know that we have the best nuclear engineer in the world are here in Pennsylvania. And with your help, we are going to hire more. What we need is to train a new generation. Everybody is great, but we're aging like the reactors. So this new generation is to come online, if I may say, and I'm looking forward to working with universities and also the states and everybody who can help us, bring and attract the best and brightest here in Pennsylvania.
That's great. Samir, how are you thinking about the energy use for your company? And give us a little comments on kind of the range of sources you're using and how you're thinking about the future for Covestro.
Yeah, so I talked about the importance of energy from a perspective of a large consumer of energy. We have 12 sites here all across the United States. But I'd like to talk about the importance of energy from the perspective of an international company. A big part of what I do, a big part of my job, is to make sure that investments are coming to the United States, that are coming to this region, that we are creating jobs in this region. This is the largest region for Covestro globally. And we look at 3 different factors in making decisions where to invest. You know, as a global company, do you invest in North America? Do you invest in Asia? Do you invest in Europe? And the three factors are, I mentioned one of them, which is the reliability, the availability, and the economics of energy. And the US, by far, is the most competitive globally, by far. So we have a huge advantage on this first factor, and we need to make sure it continues to be an advantage for manufacturing. The second factor is that there needs to be certainty and predictability about energy security for not for the next couple of years, but for decades. When we make capital investments, they span decades. We're talking about billions of dollars of investment that need a return over 20, 30, 40 years. So whatever solution we come up with has to be mid to long term. So that's the second factor, which is playing that long game, having that long planning horizon. And the third factor, which was just mentioned, is sustainability. That is absolutely important for us as a company because that's what our customers are asking for. They're asking for ways to decarbonize. And we, Covestro, have a very aggressive target that by 2030, so in less than 5 years, we will reduce our carbon emissions by 60%, 60, in less than 5 years. And in 10 years, by 2035, go to carbon zero, right? Zero. And that's absolutely possible because of the mix of energy sources that we have in this country, whether it's nuclear, whether it's fossil fuel, whether it's renewables. This is absolutely important. So when we look at what it means for us, it's really important to have that reliability over the long term and making sure that we have that access to sustainable, renewable solutions as well.
Thank you. So let's shift gears a little to the solution set and policies and what needs to happen to unlock the potential and to really deliver on solutions that you're all talking about that are so desperately needed. So Kevin, you talked about how this was a bit of a shock to you about 1.5 years ago, right? And even you and your business did not appreciate the magnitude and the urgency around this challenge. Help us understand how you saw the conference and why you took this on to lead us. And then the other thing I want to make sure you can frame up before we get to the specifics on the solutions is, is this an all of the above solution? What are we trying to push forward on? And how are we thinking about the framing and the goal of our policy solutions?
Yeah, let me start with the end first, Stephanie, if I can. And I think Jacques just exemplified what the point I'm going to make. So if I could pull the curtain a little bit on the discussions we had as a policy committee, as you can imagine, folks have their individual interest at heart when they come in the room, and they're trying to advance those interests. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's all things right about that. You should be doing that. But when it takes a collaborative effort, when everybody can't stay in their neutral corners and actually solve the problem, it requires some collaboration. It requires some compromise. It requires some real talk instead of the hype. So what Jacques just said was that, like, hey, AP1000s are ready today. They're operating. We can do more of those. He also said that the 300s are like 2030 around. I mean, that's huge for a company that's trying to promote, and he's the sales guy, as he said, as they're trying to promote their product to say, and it's not going to be ready for prime time until this time. And many people who came with the initial positions of like, yeah, we can do everything for all people right now, really took a reality check and said, like, yes, if we're really going to solve this problem, we have to eat a little humble pie and be realistic about what we're talking about. So I commend Westinghouse and others who did that, because we couldn't have gotten to where we are, and we can't solve this problem if people were in pretend world versus reality world. And so let me just make that point.
That's really good point. Yeah,
and
thank
so
you.
Realizing that we're at that point, and we came up with a solution that really does take advantage of what we have today, with a tilt towards sustainability in the future. So those two pieces is maybe sounds like all of the above. That's a catchword that people have used in the past, but it really is solving today's problem today and solving next year's problem next year. So, and the way we split it up was pre-2030, post-2030. So there's some things that are really going to be game changers post-2030 that we have to keep our eye on. We have to keep facilitating and sponsoring. Samir mentioned that everybody's moving to sustainability, so none of that stuff went out of the window. We just sprinkled some practicality on top of that. And then Allegheny Conference being a convening body and where all the the room where it happens, so to speak. I mean, all the people who have to partner in this region to get these things done. It was a no-brainer to say, like, well, let's take it to the Allegheny Conference to see if there's even an appetite to tackle this together. And I was happy to see that there was a huge appetite, and we've gotten to where we are today.
Thank you. So, the way we characterize it, I would say, is kind of this build now and then into the future, right? So, what's commercially viable, what's available, what can we actually get on the grid immediately, and then how do we also make sure that the Southwest PA market benefits and its solutions and it becomes an economic development opportunity for us as well. So let me come back to you, Alan, and I want to hear a little from you. What is it going to take for CNX to get CMM on the market here, on the grid? What do you need from a policy and regulatory perspective to make this happen?
Yeah, so we're currently have been and are currently capturing CMM off the backside of a coal mine down in Virginia. Those volumes are actively decarbonizing the PJM market right now. We participate in the RPS program. The challenge we face, though, is the economic incentives currently don't justify expansion of that system. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a huge opportunity set throughout Appalachia to capture more of this sort of fugitive waste gas, but we need higher incentives. Last year we worked closely with the folks administering the IRA to try to design a program where you could capture those volumes to be used for hydrogen production, and ultimately, through whatever final regulations came out, the incentives weren't enough to incentivize that.
And these are federal.
Those were federal
45E,
incentives.
45Z,
Yeah, so it's the right question. I think now we're going to continue to pursue federal pathways, opportunities under the alphabet soup of 45Zs and Qs, as well as state level discussions. But ultimately, it comes down to who pays for the decarbonization, right? So as we talk about things like AI data centers moving into the region, we already have a grid that's at capacity, and we're going to add strain to that. So the beneficiaries of data centers are going to be the Metas, the Googles, those folks, right? So, in one man's opinion, those are the folks that should be paying the premium for the decarbonization and not putting that back on the ratepayer. So those are the sorts of policy discussions and commercial discussions that need to happen as we move forward. With not just replacing the grid, but being able to grow energy supply in the region.
And it's worth mentioning that the solution you're developing is pretty innovative, and it's right here in this bill, could happen in Southwest PA for a job creator.
Yeah.
It's
Anywhere coal has
and this
been
isn't
mined.
something that is
Yeah.
pretty unique product that you're building out.
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
anywhere coal has been mined throughout Appalachia, there is fugitive methane leaking to atmosphere. The question is, do we have the right incentive structure to go to
Yep.
prevent that, right? And that's how you get to net zero, by you're stopping the stuff from emitting in the first place.
Yeah. Jacques, talk a little about, from your perspective, what kind of market signals do you need? What kind of policies do you need at the state level? Obviously, there's regulatory issues at the federal level, but lean in a little heavily on the state side of things and how Pennsylvania can really drive towards this.
Yeah. First of all, as you said, nuclear is really, driven by federal regulations, and I think most of it is in place. We need to continue to keep the investment tax credit in place because for our customers to continue. I think from state, we need, I would say, two kind of supports. First, to continue to help attract, we work with universities to attract the best engineers and the best people so we can hire them. So we need really the support of the state to do that. I'm not a specialist, but anything you can do to help us, again, attract and retain the next generation of employees at Westinghouse is very, very important. The second item is that, the signal actually, as you said, the hyperscalers are coming. And I think they are quite ready to pay their share. We are in discussion with them because the hyperscalers, they need 24/7. They can, for example, when you're on your phone, you don't tolerate 1 second interruption. So you can't rely on wind or solar. You have to rely on a 24/7 on dispatchable energy. So it's carbon emitting sometimes, and also it could be nuclear. So anyway, they need nuclear and they need this type of power. They're going to come and site large data centers. Anything the state can do to help them site very large data centers here, very large, 1 gigawatt, basically electric, will really boost this region. Because they will be ready to not only build the data centers, but give the incentive to you, to me, to all of us, to bring the power to them and to make sure that the power is 24/7.
And Jacques, in terms of this siting, the incentives, do you want to comment on other states, the kind of scale of the investments they're making and how they're making this?
I don't
work?
have the details, but right
Okay.
now Virginia is very, very, I mean,
Okay.
is very,
Okay.
I don't have the details, but
Yeah,
if you look at
yeah.
Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, even down south to, you have Georgia, even to Mississippi, they are trying to
Very,
attract
yeah.
very large data centers.
Samir, do you want to give us a little bit of
Yeah, maybe I
a
can
little
add,
color
again,
on the policy environment?
perspective from a consumer side.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I mentioned, we have 12 sites around the nation, so we have a unique opportunity to compare between the sites, the states, when it comes to incentives. I would say incentives are not per se a determining factor for us to make investments, but all being equal, if there's a state that is more attractive, then that moves the needle. And I would say that when I compare the 12 locations, we have some room for improvement here in Pennsylvania. Just maybe given, and when I think about incentives, it's not necessarily just monetary incentives. Sometimes we overlook the bureaucracy, right? So how difficult it is to get permits, how long it takes to get permits. Do you have a one-stop shop, you know, to get your sort of your position across and your request across, or do you have to go through multiple agencies? And here I would say Pennsylvania has some room to improve. I mean, I give the example of Texas, talking about sustainability. You know, incentives are important for us to de-risk some of our investments. So there we partnered with our energy supplier, and we were able to get over $100 million to invest in carbon capture and sequestration. So this allows us to take a huge manufacturing site that consumes a lot of energy, emits a lot of CO2, but by using that technology of carbon capture becomes a carbon neutral facility. And that will happen before the end of this decade. So this is, for me, a clear example of how states can really play a very important role from a monetary side, but equally important from a non-monetary side to make things easier for us to get things moving in the right direction.
So incentives, siting, we know the EDGE tax credit is kind of being proposed right now. That could be an option. Kevin, bring this home on the policy side. What do we need from the state, and why does it matter right now?
Yeah, I can't let some of the comments go by, so I apologize. I'll
Yeah, that's fine.
back up a little bit.
That's fine.
I should
Give
probably
us-
just
give us your
interject.
color commentary.
Yeah, I should probably interject as we go along. But so on renewables, I mean, clearly renewables are intermittent sources of generation. I mean, that's the way to position them. And so when they're not able to generate, you need a backup, which that backup winds up being gas, which is our steady state here in the region. So that today is not refutable. So I think about pre-2030 versus post-2030. At some point, we're going to have the ability to commercially and scale and deliver at an affordable price a storage capacity. So we have EOS in our backyard. We have other battery technologies. And so at some point, those intermittent sources are going to look like steady state sources. And that's going to be the game changer for those renewables, because then they can come into play on an always-on sort of basis, which will help us continue to move to our sustainability. So contemplated in our policy is there's room to promote and advance those kinds of storage capabilities so that we can continue to move towards a clean energy future. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point. We want to really lean in and prioritize what's available, commercially viable right now that could be put on the grid and start helping us make sure our companies can continue to function, that we can turn our lights on. And so it really is about being practical in our solution set.
Yep, exactly. And so, I mean, to your other point about, policies and regulations and all that kind of stuff, I don't see those things. We often talk about regulations. Regulators in our state, our investors who invest in our utility companies in the state, see the regulators as very practical, pragmatic, reasonable, a good balance between utility interest and customer interest and all those sort of things. And so we enjoy a pretty stable regulatory environment as people look at us from a financial standpoint. I think what we're delving into now is going to require some innovation and creativity and maybe some disruption in how we look at our regulation. And so, we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, because I think all of that predictability and patience has served us well. But leaning into some of these special areas with a new and renewed innovation, I think, is going to be important from a regulatory standpoint and a legislative standpoint. Oftentimes, the regulators are looking to be enabled or at least supported by the legislature as well. So I think you can't separate those things in my mind. But for the most part, I think we have everything we need, and we have the creativity and imagination to move this forward, especially with the support of all the folks in the room and the Allegheny Conference helping to lead those discussions. So I'm pretty optimistic that we can get where we need to get.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Before I give everyone a chance to make a final comment, because we're getting the time sign, I think your framing is really powerful, that we looked at this and said, could we just let the market happen and this will all solve itself? And I think we realized we need some actions to shape and incentivize and create a little bit of control factors that the market won't just get it done, right? That we need to push on the regulatory side, the siting, there needs to be more incentives. We need to create signals so CMM can be built out, and then we need a faster structure at the state, like a board or some other place, to make sure that these decisions are happening in rapid pace, in real time, with what's needed from a commercial perspective. So I will just put a plug in that you're gonna get our energy policy framework that the conference board approved last week that is giving us a structure to work within, and then we'll start pushing on at the state level. So let me give each one of you, starting with you, Alan, give us your call to action. Why does this matter now? What do you wanna see happen quickly?
Yeah, in terms of what the folks in this room can do, I think it comes back to state level. It's not maybe the energy distribution regulatory framework. It's permitting for new customers, right? So
Absolutely.
I think what you're going to see, and this is just sort of empirical, we're losing to other states for some reason in Pennsylvania, and there's no reason we should be. We have all the resources, we have all the expertise, we have all the manpower, but we continue to lose new investments to Ohio, to Texas, to places like that. So there needs to be groups like yours working to educate what's going on at the state level and figure out what is the issue here. Do people just completely avoid Pennsylvania because they're going to have to go through a 2-year permitting process before they can consider to start to move dirt? There's things that are making us anti-competitive that are real and that's showing up in the results from new investments. Outside of the U.S. Steel thing, which is rehabbing brownfield sites and new investment, it's hard to name, since the Shell cracker, maybe a major investment in infrastructure in the region. And that certainly isn't because of the conditions precedent in the region. We have plenty of great reasons to be here. So the last thing I'll say here is we're here. We've been here for 150 years. We're going to be the backbone of any transition. I know we don't like to use that word. We think natural gas can be part of the mix for as long as it's in existence. But we're trying to offer solutions, and we're all in this together.
Thank you, Alan. Jacques.
So I would piggyback on you. We've been here also for 150 years, and we are going to grow tremendously in the next 5 to 10 years. And so my call to action is help us retain, attract, and train the next generation of nuclear professionals. This is a unique opportunity to this region, and I need the help, every support I can get to, again, get them here, retain them, and make sure that they're happy and we can grow the company, because it's going to be the limiting factor. It's very interesting, but the limiting factor for our growth right now will be the number of engineers we can train on for the job.
Thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, I would just say, if you need motivation, the carrot is this is a fantastic opportunity for our region and for all of us to really shine. And it's consistent with our history. I mean, this region has always been at the forefront of innovation and energy and all things that advance the country and the world. So why not? I mean, it's in our DNA. So there's a fantastic opportunity. The stick of it is there is a real opportunity for rolling blackouts, which is not something that we want to endure in this great country of ours, let alone in our region. and that would be a big downer for the economy and for our vibrancy and all that sort of stuff. So pick your poison, which one of those things that motivates you most, but they are, both of them are real legitimate opportunities for us to take advantage of.
Thank you. Samir?
Get involved, get engaged, bring your expertise, bring your network, bring your knowledge to the table. You saw that the very first bullet point of this action plan is creating a task force. You know, we had a few companies around the table. We covered, I think, a lot of ground, but there are some blind spots that we have not seen. So I think the more we can create this ecosystem and build on that, I think the better the result will be. So please get involved, get engaged. The runway is not very long. 5 years will go very fast.
Yeah. And to put a finer point on it, the path to growth in this region is through energy. So with that, I'd like to thank our panelists. We give them a round of applause. And I'd like to bring up Tim Bedard, the General Counsel of CNX, who's going to close us out. Thank you, everybody.
You guys have the misfortune of the lawyer cleaning up at the end. It was a sobering discussion by the panel, but I think one that is really timely given all of us understanding how important energy is to us. At the end of April, we suffered, as Kevin told us earlier, one of the largest outages that we've seen in Allegheny County and Beaver County. And hats off to you and your team for doing a wonderful job of getting us back online. And it really is a testament to the people of the region, how we all came together to make that happen. We do need a pragmatic approach to solving this problem. And I think that the work that Stephanie, you and the Allegheny Conference are doing really is a great first step in bringing us all together to solve this. And we should leave ideology aside and work together as we've done as a region, as our company and Westinghouse, as centuries-old companies have proven to everyone that we can do as a region to continue to deliver solutions for us. Listening to the comments today, I think one thing is clear. The nation's energy appetite continues to increase unabated. I was shocked to learn that we have potentially a 40 gigawatt shortfall and that we would potentially face rolling blackouts. And as someone that spent a fair amount of time in California, I can tell you that is incredibly unpleasant. So I hope that we can all work together to solve that. As we heard from the panel, our regional grid is at a crossroads and it's not currently positioned to serve growing demand from daily life, not to mention managing the needs of the coming data center economy. I thought it was humorous that people can't be without their phones for 1 second. That is absolutely true. It's amazing to think that that sort of thing is what is driving all of this activity. But that's why we're here, and that's why the Allegheny Conference is convening the top minds in the region to plot a course to reliable, low-cost, sustainable energy future. As Alan and Jacques said, the solutions to these issues are right here, right now in our region. We're blessed with an ocean of natural gas underneath our feet. We have the largest underground coal mine, and I know that that's probably impolitic to say that, but that is the truth of the matter, and it continues to deliver energy solutions for us. We have a region have a great opportunity to offer net zero solutions to our grid and beyond. Western Pennsylvania is the birthplace of the commercial nuclear industry, as Jacques said, a legacy of leadership that lives on today. I'm the son of a Westinghouse nuclear engineer, so my livelihood is based on my dad having worked for a very long time at Westinghouse, and I could not be happier to see this great company resurge the way that it has. We also have a unique decarbonization lever in remediated mine gas, as Alan said. Coal mine methane released from years of development that once captured serves as a valuable and unique net zero lever for the region. And I'm proud to say that we at CNX lead the way on harvesting and putting coal mine methane to beneficial use. All the ingredients are in this region to position us as a leader in energy, manufacturing, data centers, indeed electrification writ large for the next generation. We just need to have the will to continue working together under Stephanie and the conference's great leadership to make this a reality. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thank you all.